Hello, this is Jenny Nichols, and this is Local Share Green Action Podcast, where we hear from people across the U.S. that share their stories about work that they are doing in their local community with a common goal of taking green action that helps care for people and wildlife and the environment in our local towns and cities. Our goal is that we might be able to learn from and inspire each other while we find our own solution-based action that lets us live meaningful, sustainable, eco-friendly lives while cleaning, protecting, and repairing the environment. Today on our podcast, I'm speaking with two board members of a nonprofit community organization that provides local learning opportunities that promote sustainability, environmental awareness, and partnerships with others in the community. I'm speaking with Chuck Lynd and Lynn Stan. Chuck founded the nonprofit Simply Living in Worthington, Ohio in 1992. An educator, Chuck retired from Ohio State University, volunteer full-time for Simply Living. He organizes their documentary films and local solutions series and monthly meetup events. Chuck's children and grandchildren further motivate him to address the environmental, social issues of our times. Lynn is also a board member and has been a fan from the beginning. Her background ranges from nonprofit arts organizations, helping small businesses take products and services to market, and sourcing and manufacturing items overseas. Her current focus is on living more sustainably and reducing her footprint. Welcome, Chuck and Lynn.
Good to be here.
Thank you, Jenny.
I'm so excited to speak with both of you and find out more about your path of green action that led to working with greening your community through your nonprofit. Chuck, what initially planted the seeds for you to want to take some kind of green action for the environment?
Well, I had become very much tuned into environmental issues for a long time, since the 70s. And in 1992, a friend of mine invited over to visit Marilyn Welker, who's the actual visionary who founded Simply Living. And so I resonated right away. She had been inspired by I think it was the 1990 20-year anniversary of the Earth Day. We had an amazing surprise amount, like 30,000 people showed up at this local park and made everybody start to think, whoa, this is, we need to deal with this. And Marilyn really had the idea of, well, if we all would pay attention to our lifestyle, hence the name Simply Living, we just cut back, step off the consumer merry-go-round, and pay more attention to more authentic living and building community. Those days we had a lot of potlucks, gatherings, and the focus was a little bit more on, and it still is, on lifestyle, how it changes, how to reduce your ecological footprint, all good. But in recent years, the crises have multiplied and a number of us have become more politically active, and not to endorse candidates and mess up our 501c3 status, but the issues are just too great to ignore. And so some of us have been to DC to get arrested, to let people know that, Bill McKibben has been an inspiration through 350.org. And we've had a lot of people like Lynn in our community who have been aware of these issues for decades and are excited really to see the momentum build. And over 28 years, we can at least say today that the idea of sustainability is not new, but it was at the time. I mean, the idea of living sustainably and that whole message was hard to communicate. Now we've had so many engagements with local governments and projects that involve sustainability that I think even the major corporations now at least hire a sustainability coordinator to pay attention sometimes to greenwash. But, there are many good intentions, and there are more and more corporations, and Lynn might speak to that are more involved in the local economy. So, yeah, lots of reasons, lots of streams fed that whole impulse to create an organization to do this work. And we've collaborated with all the other green organizations in Central Ohio, Sierra Club, Green Columbus, etc.
Nice. So Lynn, how about yourself? What initially planted the seeds for you to want to take some kind of green action?
Well, it's always been a part of my history. I graduated high school in '76. I kind of saw some of the first Earth days, and I was the youngest. My brother was 6 years older. And then I married into a family of people who were part of that group doing this in Columbus. And because he was 15 years older than myself. And so it all just kind of kept the same story kept coming over and over again is why do we let certain things happen and not be aware of the impact on the earth, and then later all those other types of things. But then when I was working overseas and doing things, helping people make products overseas, and that's a long story, but through it, I really did see this is not really good for our home economy, and this certainly really adds to that whole concept of what is the cost of that delivered item, the cost or just the cost to the earth. And it just really was, I thought, this is not really what I want to be doing. So got away from that, although I do still have one client who still wants his one little product that he can't really find here. But it just really said you have to start looking at what you're doing. And then I got involved with small businesses that were farmers and helped run farmers markets and helped create a store that's all about buying local. And so I understood the trendiness of it and could see the benefits of it too. But then again, that was also, you got to walk the talk. You just can't say you're only going to allow certain vendors who follow certain rules, made in Ohio, about Ohio, or in the shape of Ohio. But all those different types of things of where did you source it from? And, if you're going to start asking people to prove that, then you have to walk the talk. And Columbus is a very special community in a lot of ways. We have a thing called Community Festival, ComFest. And it has been doing this for 50 years, talking about this is the better community we all want it to be. And that's where Simply Living is. I always say ComFest does it for 2.5 days with beers and music and lots of fun and placement for people to have FaceTime. But Simply Living is the one who all year long is continually bringing these issues. And I think what our biggest challenge has been is we are not content providers. We are connecticians. We connect into these with each other, and that comes back to the challenge right now of we have so many different green organizations with their membership and so many different types of community things trying to do their own little greenness and sustainability, which is great, but how can we help tie those all together so in the end, the businesses that are going to be serving those people that are now their interest wanting to connect, because certainly these last 4 months have taught a lot of people more things about our whole economy and our world. So how do we then kind of, bring that all together? So that's kind of where my passion is. It's always been, we acknowledge the issues. How do we make some change? I'm not a big lobbyist and a big political person, so that's really hard when you're trying to make change if you're not committed to that aspect and those roads. But how do you then do it in your own dollars? And that's the part I do really understand in my connecting people with, did you know in your neighborhood they're doing this? And those types of things. So that's where Chuck and I always get really excited because he does this weekly. I don't know if you've seen it or Chuck could share that with you, but weekly he talks about this is what's going on. This is where you can go and take a class. This is who's showing these movies, and this is who's talking, and this and that. And it's just wonderful. So that's all part of Simply Living's challenge. How do we keep on that, being that connectician?
Perfect. So did you start your meetup group from the beginning of your nonprofit?
No. So meetup is maybe 6 or 7 years old. We did start this meetup group, and it's been successful. Not lately. We're trying to do the virtual things to have, Zoom meetup, and we're trying to get that going and do it on a regular basis. But the meetup, it does a really good job of people finding us, and then hopefully we hope actually in the over the past several years, a number of them have become strong members. They've become they check out they leave meetup, which is its own little world and space, to look at our website, and then we post the events that we do, which are not typically meetup just to socialize, but meetups to learn about some aspect of sustainability or a movie that raises an issue about urban agriculture or solar energy and those sorts of things. So we do want to do more with the meetup in terms of getting people to kind of socialize, network, and kind of rebuild potluck communities. We do this, actually, we're affiliated with a group called Care and Share Time Bank, which is a way for people to connect on a little computer system to trade services with each other. They have a potluck every third Sunday at a local unity Unitarian Church. So that's an opportunity for many of our members because of that affiliation to show up at the potluck, and that's always fun. We often have potlucks at our annual meetings and sometimes at fundraisers, that sort of thing. So it's always good for people to interact in real time. And I think that's the...
So initially, how did you get the word out to where you had people to participate in your potlucks?
We helped co-found a local retail food co-op, and we operated a bookstore in that co-op for about 18 plus years. Just a few years ago, it lost out to the competition, but we were around for quite a while. And what we did then was we had information in a little corner of the store, not only the bookstore, but about joining Simply Living. And if people got a discount by joining the co-op, they got an additional discount by joining Simply Living as well. So that's helped. And there's another co-op we're working with now in Columbus, in Bexley, actually, that we're trying to build similar relationship with them, and doing co-sponsoring with them on films in a neighborhood theater near them, that sort of thing. But basically press releases, and we started Simply Living started low power FM radio station probably, 12, 15, 14 years ago. And we have two now. We do not operate them now. We are not, as Lynn suggested, we're not the actual providers of the information, but we are the connectors. And we sold for $1 to a neighborhood group, a volunteer group that's been running the two stations ever since. And the newest one, called the Green Renaissance Network, has a relationship with the Pacifica Network, so we carry a lot of their programming. We do local programming. We get folks talking about sustainability issues. There's programs devoted to that. We have Tom Hartman 3 hours and every afternoon for liberal talk show, progressive issues. So we're excited that can be hopefully it'll gain audience, but we do a variety of activities, and we try to promote to the community to get them to come to our events, or we show up at community festival events of various kinds all year long when we could do them in person, with our literature and our newsletter and our insatiable, intrepid proselytizing to get people to see the light.
It is a special community, and I think that's what you're really hearing, Jenny, is that there has been this wonderful community. This community festival has been happening for 50 years. The Free Press, which is a very outstanding newspaper in the journalism, it's been 50 years. And we have 5 universities in Central Ohio that have a lot of the stuff that, and people have stayed here. so that's what Simply Living. So they've created not just the stations that Chuck was speaking about, but also helped co-op be founded and spin off. And that's what we, see great futures too, is how do you help little problem solvers, little businesses to help, be launched. And we, are looking, that's always part of our thing too, because we have great home and garden shows. Do they ever have anything that's about sustainability in a home or a garden? No, they don't. So how do we try to do that in other ways too, is try to be that, show those types of things. And unfortunately, COVID has interfered with some of the things that had started getting popular, which was to have home and garden shows that are not the home part, but mostly garden, about sustainability. Utilizing water barrels. How are you utilizing in your urban, your chickens and your farming and so people can see, one, it's exciting and beautiful, but also not that overwhelming. So I think that's one thing that's really special about Columbus, is that it has a lot of these things going on, and if you keep connecting them and working through them, then we can all succeed. So and also I think we repackaged things. We may have said invite you to a business, and now it's called a meetup. Before it was just an open house that we were sponsoring. So I think the meetup to our whole society has changed how we market things in social media, which is great that we have these opportunities. Because when Chuck speaks and talked about the movie, the story of plastic, he had people online that weren't from Central Ohio. And I think that's the nice thing about these Zooms and these blogs, is that they get recorded, and then people who couldn't meet up at that hour, that time, that place, still have the ability to share the information. So thank you, Jenny, for doing this.
Yeah. So what other types of events, so you mentioned gardening, and what other types of events are you using as educational opportunities?
Well, we have how about the City Farm Folk Shop? It's a store that's really about if you're going to be doing farming at your house. So having people speak there and have gatherings there specifically about those subject matters. But also, and Chuck can tell you about Sustainable You, which is really ways to package those types of information access. Do you want to talk about that, Chuck?
Sure. We started this thing called Simply Living Sustainable You, sort of like the idea of a university, but putting the emphasis on individual people learning the skills and obtaining the knowledge for sustainable kind of issues. So, for example, and you can go to our website, click on the SLSU or Sustainable You logo, and see upcoming classes. We're beginning to expand this on the other side for things that aren't necessarily classes and work, all sorts of classes, workshop, courses. For example, there's a Columbus Garden School that brokers all sorts of different sustainability kind of, not just gardening, but there was one on how to learn the basic information for going solar, to put solar panels on your roof. One of our board members did a DIY workshop and a Sustainability 101 kind of at the Columbus Garden School. Lynn mentioned the City Folks Farm Shop, which is a real hub for the local urban agriculture homesteading folks that have chickens in the backyard, that sort of thing. We've worked with Green Energy Ohio to collaborate on events. I've personally spoken at people have invited us to talk to their groups, for example. We've talked at University Women at Ohio State, Rotary Club meetings. Lynn and I were involved in a project called Support Our Local Economy that involved numerous presentations and workshops about the benefits of localization, how to keep money in the community and the multiplier effect and the value of our local economy. We write articles. I just wrote an article earlier this week in the Free Press, she mentioned. It's a lengthy one, but it's all about how to address the power structures that are slow to adopt the kind of sustainability issues we want, like 100% renewable energy in Columbus. How do we work with grassroots organizations? So I know it's kind of all over the place, but we are literally, because all of us are networked with, like Lynn brings much of the Free Press and those contacts through her marriage and through her experience. We've connected with so many organizations that one that's a great one is called the Economic and Community Development Institute, where again, Lynn was a former, I think you were on the board there, right, Lynn?
Oh, no.
Or you worked there?
No, I was staff.
She was staff. Okay. So, but
outreach.
they do microloans to small businesses and startups and mid-sized businesses. They have a loan program that anybody, you don't have to be a certified investor or anybody with $1,000 minimum from a CD or whatever can put it in a loan fund called Invest Local Ohio. And the result is that all of those dollars are invested in local startup businesses to support the local economy. Simply Living, for example, did presentations with ECDI, the Economic and Community Development Institute, to invite members of the public to take advantage of this opportunity to invest locally in our local economy. And we talked about, from Simply Living's side, the sustainability aspect of building a strong local economy and not being dominated by corporate interests that have weakened the local economy and taken much of the market share. Anyway, so we're basically as connectors.
Well, I think the other one is Chuck built relationships. It's always about location. So it's really hard for people to come all over the city, even if they're interested in the subject. So Chuck built these relationships with different movie theaters. So in different parts of the city, whether it's the university or East Side or whatever, these different movies could be seen, which is then lovely. And then there'd be a panel discussion afterwards. Now we're trying to figure out a way, how do we put them up online? Because a lot of them are free online, but how do you then direct people and still add some of the other just content parts part that happened. So again, how do you repackage it and stuff? But that's one thing that really was for a long, and unfortunately, I know a lot of us do miss that, where, at a movie theater, it's one part of town, just being able to join up watch a movie and then have a discussion afterwards.
Yeah, we have 4 locally owned theaters, and so we tend to work with them rather than the chains. Nothing against we want the chains to show good movies too, but we also are very impressed that so many great local, not necessarily local, but independent filmmakers are getting the message out on so many of these issues that are not covered, at least not in depth, in the mainstream media. They get a mention, but there's not really in-depth coverage. So, and a good example, we just did the story of plastic. Now, the distributors for the story of plastic basically offer the platform to let you watch it for 2 weeks, a 2-week window. We promote it, get people to watch it. And then we had our Q&A and discussion with an expert panel. So we had an expert, a research scientist, an activist around the plastics. And we had a woman from the Bexley Sustainability Group in a suburb that has banned plastic in their community and has worked with a large grocery chain to stop the plastic, which is good. And who else did we have, Lynn? We had a third expert. Oh yeah, we have the Sierra Club, and we again collaborate with the Sierra Club. They have a Beyond or a Past Plastic initiative, and so again, by having them give short presentations, we recorded it in the webinar and then had a Q&A. It was very successful.
Well, and I think the other unique thing about Columbus, Jenny, you may want to look it up, is we were selected to be the smart city, the city to look at and help other cities become smarter, and it's called Smart Columbus, and that could be a whole nother discussion. But the point of it is that Columbus has always been if it starts to be trendy in Columbus, then it will also be trendy other places, even though we are not East and West Coast. So, and we're 500 miles from a lot of population because of our location. So the Smart Columbus happening was kind of logical. But again, it added a lot of other different levels. But what really came out of it was electric vehicles and fuel types of vehicles to reduce the fuel. So in the process, there has been a lot of focus on that. So we've been doing Drive Electric Week celebrations that happen in September. We would kind of connect ourselves, make sure that kind of stuff is happening, or get connected with some of the electric vehicle clubs that are happening. And it's not an easy path, that whole electric vehicle side, but in terms of reaching people, because that then does impact, you have to have income on that one. It's not just your choice in your society. You have to, you know what I mean? You have to have the money. So, and so that's been interesting and a challenging in the world of connectivity, because certainly it's a very, very big project that needed to reach a lot of people, but in the process, it's not yet reaching the people on the ground, the citizens. It's more still up there in the city planning, and it'll be great things for the city. And I think that's the other thing that is going on in Columbus. They are trying to look at, because being a smart city, they are doing things, and maybe other cities are learning from things. We'll be learning from things from them.
So we have one of our former board chairs was a person named Kevin Eigel, who started Eco House Solar, and he just installed solar on my home, and it has one of these Solar Edge charging inverters that allows me to charge my electric car. Didn't cost me a fortune. I paid $13,000 4 years ago for a 3-year-old Nissan Leaf. It only goes around 80 miles, but now I can charge it with sunshine. Happy to do that. And so again, when we do films like on community solar, and we advocate for 100% renewable energy. That's an issue. Is aggregated electric is on the November 3rd ballot, in Columbus. We hope to get that passed and then put pressure on the city to do more community solar, take a vacant lot, put up a solar array. Columbus actually has a small municipal electric utility right here with expertise to make that happen. So that's one of my hobby horses. I promote that all the time. Probably mentioned it in that article I just wrote. So anyway, yeah, and charging stations that Lynn mentioned the trend, and yeah, Smart Columbus is installing charging places at apartment buildings, at Walmarts, and places where people congregate. I had a meeting 20 miles away in Delaware not too long ago, and at the library, pulled in, and there was a charging station, which was very helpful to we Leaf owners who only get so many miles.
I think also, Jenny, two other things about Simply Living connecting to its community is that we have until COVID, we had a monthly meetup called Green Drink, okay? And it's a younger audience, tends to be more urban downtown, but every month they would have some type of a green topic that would be talked about. So Simply Living would be there quite often to make sure that we can make announcements and connect with people. So that one was, I think, it was a really nice ongoing connector.
Oh, well, actually, Green Drinks is a national program, but Green Drinks Columbus is operated by an organization called Green Columbus, and we collaborate with them. So we're very well connected with showing up to be part of their events when we had them in real time. And they also sponsor Earth Day, where we always exhibit at the Earth Day events around in April every year. So these are, again, collaborative opportunities for us to get our word out. She mentioned relationship building. Obviously, it's really critical. It's just really is about, being able to call somebody up, I happen to be a neighbor of one of the city council people. So that relationship is very helpful. It just makes a difference. He and another city council member have been very influential in getting the aggregation option on the ballot in November.
So what might be some of the challenges you might have faced as a nonprofit?
Yeah, money.
I think you...
Go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, money. Well, money, because certainly volunteers don't appear in the same way, but also the needs are very different. We really need some social media and some modernity kind of volunteer help. I think the other is if your community doesn't talk to each other enough and you know what each others are doing, then there's a lot of overlap, but also, you're looking for ways to work together because things do overlap. The city and the state that should see the best benefits out of that they don't work in that favor. And because the more that when we do talk to each other, we realize, oh, well, look, we can share that opportunity. So I think that's one of the biggest things is just the city itself and the state looking to each other to share things and that we're not competitors to each other, that we really have. And I just had a discussion with Clean Fuels Ohio about it. I mean, they have certain jobs that they're trying to do, but that doesn't mean that most of the time they're I guess the other challenge is do not assume that you know who your people that are going to make change are. And oftentimes we put events thinking we're only going to talk to these certain people. And, and it's like, no, you take it to the public, you put it on the street, very on the ground, and all the public walks by. You don't just have to know who the decision makers are. Who are those grass tops? Because the grassroots are going to tickle some of those grass tops, right? So I think that's something I hear that quite often. I just heard that from Clean Fuels Ohio. Also, I said, why do you guys? Why does it always have to be about EV? And I said, do you really? So those types of things. Sorry, I don't want to go off on a tangent. But I think that's the part of the challenge as a nonprofit is, especially us. We are the connectors. We want all to get along, and because we know the benefits from that. And I think that's one of my challenges, I feel like.
Nice. What are some of the ways that you and others are enjoying the rewards of your efforts? Like, do you have a favorite story you'd like to share?
Well, I think that actually the radio station, Chuck, the fact that Simply Living Yep, I think that's one of the best. And people knowing that they can turn to Simply Living to help in their connecting when they're not remembering who they work with or whatever. So I think the radio station, to me, is one of the biggest things.
One success is that we started basically in Clintonville, and Lynn lives in Bexley, and Bexley's really coming to the fore. So we have some neighborhoods and local communities that have really stepped up to green. And Worthington's was started one of the first what we call neighborhood sustainability groups. So we're affiliated with the U.S. Transition Network. We're officially the Transition Hub, meaning we encourage and support and provide meetups sometimes for local sustainability groups in these various groups in Columbus. Worthington is a suburb just north of Columbus. They were really the first. And Bexley now has a great green offering. Gahanna, another suburb. Clintonville's right in the heart of Columbus. They've done some fantastic work. Delaware, which is about 25 miles north of Columbus. My wife happened to start that project there. And I lived in Delaware for 7 years before moving back to Columbus. And they're incredibly successful. They have spawned a regional project. They work closely with the city council. They work with the Ohio Wesleyan University. Lynn mentioned this. We have some great university and college assets. And they've done a lot of the same things that Simply Living has done, but, in Delaware. All sorts of projects like that, I think, are, definitely rewarding. I'm still on the Delaware mailing list, so I see all the good things they're doing. I listen to that radio station every day. It's exciting to hear on the radio while I'm in my car, people that I know talking about issues that I care about. I think I see my job primarily as outreach volunteer to kind of just spread the word, get more people to know. And the biggest challenge for me is bugging the grass tops, the community leaders, to make the real changes, to endorse Medicare for all, for example. It was just a letter in the dispatch in our newspaper today. They could do that. They haven't done that. We've had we've had demonstrations with the Black Lives Matter movement and a great showing here in Columbus. And after years of not developing a police civilian review board for the police, they finally decided, okay, we should do this. But it took all that pressure of demonstrations and two of the city council members being pepper sprayed themselves to make that happen. And of course, it's still not fully done. So, I feel like we need some really serious, radical, quote unquote, changes that are really change the systems so that we really have a much stronger local foods program system. We have one. It's great. We need more. And we need to strengthen the affordable housing. We need more commitment from the public sector and less privatization. And, the universities have bought into this privatization stuff. So we need to reinforce the commons. And as Lynn says, we're also promoters of Columbus. Columbus has a lot of great things about it, but it could do much better. We could be real leaders, and that's, I think, our challenge and our job.
And Chuck, listening to you speak, I realized our assets and sometimes our challenges is the fact that we have a lot of little cities that kind of intertwine with Columbus. And they're doing much better than Columbus. So maybe we need to embarrass Columbus a little bit more and tell them they need to start thinking more like Bexley. Because actually, I do live in Columbus in more of an urban neighborhood that is just a lot of people of lower income are living over here. So it's just the other big challenges. So, but I think that also, how do you then go to, like Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission? I mean, the fact that, through you, Chuck, and Simply Living, I've learned that we have that and how important they are in terms of being able to, they should be dealing with us helping to get these groups together and be talking to each other more, because those are the things they talk about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The agriculture, they're looking at transportation, they're looking at the food systems, they're looking at housing, all those things. They're looking at it with the Bexleys and the whatevers. But
they could do more. And again, that's one of our tasks as a connector, is to keep points, our jabs, our letters, our demonstrations, our efforts of various kinds to wake up to the climate crisis. That's the dark cloud over everything. And so living sustainably, individually, yes. Communities living sustainably, yes. But changing the culture, and the healing that needs to happen to the earth, to pollution from these international corporations, all the devastation of that. We need a change of culture. And we have a lot of people in Simply Living that are attracted through the, I want to say, New Age, or, the yoga and the Reiki and the alternative medicine, and the people who are looking at living healthy lives in a time when in Columbus in particular, we have very bad air from coal burning power plants in southeast Ohio, eastern Ohio. And so we have a lot of asthma, a lot of those health issues, environmental health issues. So anyway,
and now the fracking.
Oh, yeah.
If your ideas and experience and wisdom were all wrapped up in seeds of potential action to give to others, what advice would you give to someone trying to start something like this in their own city or state?
Well, we always quote Margaret Mead. Starts with a small group of people. It's the only way change has ever happened. I'm not quoting it exactly, but we started with a small group. Marilyn Welker, I mentioned. I joined up right away. We had maybe 7 or 8 people with a good idea. And through the networking, we have built the organization around connecting with our members being networked with other organizations. For example, right now, it's very common for the utilities to offer auditing services to, see where you are with your energy and how to improve that. Well, the first one actually came from back in the 90s. We had a Simply Living member who worked for the city and brought this idea, and they actually paid us to do. We had a grant to do audits and household audits. So that kind of connections in all the local communities. We had a lot of them in Clintonville. They started a transition Clintonville program to try to get solar panels on at least one house on every street in Clintonville. What a great vision, right? So, but again, I just think it's a matter of, I would say exactly what the same process happened in Delaware, where my wife had a friendship with a woman who wrote column for the local Delaware newspaper. She got together. They thought, let's start Sustainable Delaware. And they did an article in the newspaper. They met in the library. They got together and they started saying, what can we do in Delaware? They started showing movies. They have a local theater there too. They started promoting themselves at the local farmers market. They installed bike racks. They did projects with the local people with the water system. They did tours to show what the problems of runoff in agriculture. Again, all of these, and it's still going strong. They formed a 501c3, look at how they can impact climate change and use all the assets they have in a more coordinated way.
I would also suggest the Interfaith Power and Light. It's I think it might be international, but it takes the concept of a congregation is to take care of their building and what's the best way to sustainability of that building. And then once they learn what that process is, then they can take those concepts home to their own business. They can take it home to their home life. So, and by looking at how do you get to groups of people, and that's what I really like about Interfaith Power and Light, is that you are stewards of a building. And it's costly to take care of a church or a synagogue. So I like that they have there, and I learned a lot from them, and so that's one I would suggest that some people look at and see if there's anything going on in their area, or just look at their information.
Excellent. So say the name of it again.
Interfaith Power and Light.
Okay, got it. All right.
IPL, and they have like there's Ohio Interfaith Power and Light, and there's one in Illinois with a different name, but the whole idea is to encourage congregations to, for example, Simply Living, and a group of us at the Green Group in a local church, actually in Lewis Center, we gave a sermon based on the prodding from the Interfaith Power and Light group to go to your congregation, explain how important it is to green your congregation and what can be done. So we did a whole sermon, quote unquote, by lay leaders like myself and another Simply Living member. So yeah, they're a great group. There are many.
And then there's the Northwest Institute, which is it's I guess simply a guide of if a group wants to get together and talk about the issues, whether it's you're going to take back to your own home or you're working together in a business and you're looking at that business. I think that it also guides people down to what some of the analyzing, so that if you want to make change, to make an impact.
That's a great idea. In fact, one of the major sources of people deciding to or finally connecting the dots, realizing that the Simply Living umbrella strategy is very, very useful. Northwest Earth Institute, we were one of the first, goes back to the 90s, to adopt. They have like 10 courses. They revise them periodically, but they've recently changed their name to ecochallenge.org. And they have Eco Challenge events, or, I'm not sure what they call them, but they're challenges, and they encourage teams of people. And both the courses and the team efforts would be a great strategy for a group that wanted to start a sustainability initiative, because the Eco Challenge is basically saying, what can I do over a period of 2 or 3 weeks to make a change in my life, to shut my computer down all the way, to install LED lights, to shop locally, to consider solar energy, electric car, or hybrid, all of those choices that can be made. And so they compete as a team, they make it fun. So that's a great activity. And the courses themselves are all self-organized, so you don't have to have an instructor. You can just have the course as an anthology of readings around, say, food issues or energy issues or climate issues, global warming. And the articles are read over a period of 4 to 6 weeks. You read the articles as a group of 8 to 12 people, and you take turns leading and share information, reactions to the articles, and people begin to absorb in a more deep conversational way how these lifestyle changes and what's going on as a trend can be a positive impact on their lives and their community.
Nice. Yeah, that's excellent. So how would you like people to contact you that might have more questions or want to get involved?
I'm a historian and a networker in chief, so you can contact Lynn, but you can contact me, easiest way, Chuck at simplyliving.org. Easy. You can text or call me at 614-354-6172. simplyliving.org. We're also on Facebook. We're also on Twitter. We're also on Instagram.
Great. Well, thank you both for spending the time and sharing this with us. It's really been quite insightful, and everything that you have been doing there, it's quite inspiring. Thanks for joining us for Local Share Green Action. Until next time, let's all use our unique talents and abilities and take meaningful green local action that benefits the planet and people.